In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to edit your vendors in QuickBooks Online. Now, the nice thing is we already went through the same steps in the Customer Center, and it's the exact same thing for vendors. So if you choose Expenses from the left-hand menu and then click on Vendors, that's going to take you to the Vendors Center. Now, if we want to add a new vendor, all we have to do is click on this green button here that says New Vendor. And then you are just going to put in the vendor's name. So I'm going to do an example. We're going to do Bob Smith LLC. And you can put in as much or as little information as you would like to put in for the vendor. And it's really going to depend on how the client works with that vendor. So for example, if we are just recording a vendor that we pay on our credit card, so we don't really need their email or their phone number or their address, and that's totally fine. But if we are going to pay them by check, for example, then you'll want to put in the rest of the client's information or the vendor's information here in QuickBooks Online. I also want to point out for vendors, you can, if they're a 1099 vendor, that in other words, a contractor that the client is going to pay $600 or more to during the year, and if they're not paying them on credit card, but they're paying by check or ACH or whatever it might be, then make sure you click the box for track payments for 1099. All right, so I'm going to hit save. That's how you create a new vendor. Now, if we want to edit our vendor, I'm going to go back and pretend that we aren't already in the vendor center just to refresh everyone's memory. So go to expenses and go to vendors. And then we can use this little search bar right here to search for our vendor. Now, Bob happens to be on top, probably because it's alphabetical here. It's sorted by vendor. But if we want to edit Bob, all we have to do is click on his name and then click on edit. And so now we can go in here at any time and change this information. You'll also notice there are these little anchors. So if I wanted to click on this, this little map icon, I guess, takes me to address. If we click on this, pencil and paper is the notes section. If you click on this, I guess it's a bank, that'll take you to bill pay and ACH info. And then this little sheet of note paper takes you to the additional info section and the spot where we check the box for track 1099s. Okay, so for example, if I realize that, it wasn't Bob Smith LLC, but it's Bob Smith Incorporated, I could just come in here and easily update and change his name right there. All right, so I'm going to hit save. Now, let's pretend that we didn't realize Bob Smith was already in here. And let's say we entered him as Bob Smith LLC and Bob Smith Inc. So as we are going through, let me just do a quick search here. Oop. We're going to go back and I'm going to demonstrate this. So let's do another Bob. Actually, I think I just did LLC. So I'm going to do a Bob Smith LLC and a Bob Smith Incorporated. I just need the names to be different. So as you can see here, I've duplicated this vendor. Oh no! So if we want to undo a duplicate vendor, what we need to do is choose which one we want to keep. So let's say that Bob Smith Inc. is the correct business name for our vendor. All I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the name so that way I have it the exact same. Then I'm going to go to the duplicate vendor. I'm going to click on edit and I'm going to copy and paste the name in. Oop, don't need to click that. So once I copy and paste the name in and hit save, it's going to tell me, hey, that name is already being used. Would you like to merge the two? And I'm just going to click yes. So what that will do is that will take all the transactions that were recorded to either vendor and put them all under the vendor we chose to keep, in this case, Bob Smith Inc. Now, in our example, we didn't have any transactions yet, but that's why it's important to know how to merge these vendors. If they both have different transactions being coded to each name, we want to make sure we get all of that in one place. So again, if you want to add or edit or merge a vendor, we're going to go expenses, we're going to go vendors, and from the vendor center, you have the option right here to click new. Now you also can import vendors, or here's something cool, do multiple vendors at the same time. So they basically give you this sort of Excel sheet, and you could come in here and just like copy and paste all of your vendors that you want to have added at a single time right here, which is very cool. You also can customize columns. So if we're not using, facts, for example, we can remove all of these that just don't matter and then hit apply. And so that edits the columns that we're using. And then you can copy and paste all that information that you want in here and create these new vendors. All right, and I just clicked the drop down just to see what our options were here. Looks like the only option under there is create, so it's kind of interesting that they even have a drop down for it. All right, so once we were done there, if we were importing vendors, we'd hit save. So the last thing I need to show you is how to delete a vendor. So let's say that we created someone and we don't want to merge them for some reason. We just want to delete the extra vendor. So let's say we want to delete Bob Smith Inc. I'm going to click on the vendor, and then under edit, I'm going to actually just say make inactive. So when I click make inactive, here's the funny thing. It doesn't really delete them. It puts the word deleted in parentheses, and then it makes them just inactive. So they won't show up in your vendor list when you're going to add new transactions. Now, we should have an option. So if I click on these three little lines, by the way, this is how we expand and contract our menu here. And then if I click on the plus sign, that'll let me create a new vendor. So just want to point those out in case if we hadn't done that in a previous video. So from our vendors here, we actually do have the option to see our inactive vendors. So I'm going back out to my vendor center, so from expenses vendors or from the tab up here. And then if you click on the gear icon, you have the option to check the box here to include inactive. And now you can see Bob. So remember, first we merged one of our Bobs, so it shows him as in parentheses deleted. And then the other one we actually made inactive, so he also shows as deleted in parentheses. If that was a mistake or an error, just click the button here to make active. All right, so that's our lesson on how to add, edit, merge, and delete vendors in QuickBooks Online.